getting high-paying real estate photography gigs, doing luxury properties, doing commercial properties is something that a lot of real estate photographers aspire toward, but they approach it incorrectly and they give up too fast and they settle for less. It's something you don't have to do. It's something I didn't do, and I can attest to the fact that if you stick with it, if you approach this correctly, you can achieve higher paying gigs that will not only just pay you more, but take less time out of your schedule, thus making you more money overall. And that's what this episode is all about. For those who don't know me, my name is Nathan Kuhl. I'm a full-time professional real estate photographer in Southern California, and I've literally shot thousands of properties in the local area here. I've also written best-selling books on real estate photography as well. And when I first started out many years ago, I had that same goal of wanting to shoot these high-end properties and get into these mansions, and I knew there was a lot more money there than there would be in shooting just condos and other stuff. There was a difference in the type of clientele that I would be working with. I knew that back then, but it was very tough to get into that market initially because I also was approaching it wrong. There's some things though that I've learned over time. I'm going to be covering that in this episode, and not just some of the things to look for, but actually how to find those particular gigs and to sustain them as well. Something that I've always said, you've probably seen it in other videos that I talk about, is that I'd rather drive to a $500 gig than 5 $100 gigs. When you're talking about luxury properties, not just around here in Los Angeles and other big metro areas, you're talking about even a lot more money. You're talking about $1,000, $2,000, even more when you get into some of this higher end work. And I'm going to be covering some of that and show you specifically some of those examples. But it's one of those things where if you get one of those or two of those jobs a week, you don't have to be running around all over town to try to get your income being a real estate photographer. But there's some foundational things that you have to understand before we get into doing the actual searches and the proper approaches to sell yourself to be able to get this type of work. To set the stage completely for this entire concept of getting these higher paying gigs is that you have to get rid of this idea that you've probably heard propagated through social media and elsewhere by other photographers that realtors are cheap. That statement is completely incorrect. The more proper statement would be that low-end agents and low-end realtors tend to be cheap, but the ones that are in it for the long game, the ones that are looking to sell those higher end properties to make higher commissions for themselves, they know the value of good marketing material and they will pay more for it. Now, sure enough, there's going to be some outliers. You're going to find luxury properties online, a few here and there, that will just be taken with cell phone pictures. That's inevitable, but it's not an all or nothing thing. You have to look at the majority of this, and the majority of high-end properties everywhere are represented by realtors who can sell high-end properties, and those are the ones that know that they can not only sell those properties for other people, and they attract those clients to sell those properties by knowing that they can sell themselves using good marketing material. So if you're shooting a luxury property, that realtor isn't just using it to sell the property for the immediate commission, they're using it to sell themselves for future gigs that they can get, other listings they can get for many more years. Those are the types of clients that you want to target, and I'm going to be talking specifically how to find those, but there's still a little bit more foundational things we need to cover first. Before anything, before you go out there, try to find these clients and do all that, you have to make sure that you are ready, and you have to face the truth of that and look at your work. You have to make sure that you really can produce something that's better than what's being used right now by particular agents. That means you need to practice your craft. You need to hone your skills. You need to practice, practice, and practice even more. And like I've said before, you can do this in the privacy of your own home. Don't even bother cleaning your home. Don't bother staging it. Work on your techniques. Throw away footage, but you need to do that. When I first started out, I approached every job as though it was a luxury property. I didn't care if it was a mobile home, a condo, whatever it was. I went full on with it so that I could then also show that, hey, I really do better work than what the competition is doing. That immediately starts opening up little doors here and there. Not a whole lot, but you'd be surprised where you can start growing at least to build slowly a better portfolio. So it's not just that you practice, practice, practice. You get better, then go ahead and market yourself. You want to practice to the point where you can start taking advancements. You need to start stepping up from where you are to where you can start achieving an intermediate goal before getting to those higher end properties. So practice at home first, get as good as you can with that, work towards taking some of this then out into the field and keeping in mind that you want to achieve those high-end properties. If you keep the end in mind, if you keep that goal in mind, then every job that you approach will be a higher quality and you're going to challenge yourself to do better each and every time. As you get better, as you start getting into better and better jobs and you're doing a better job with them and you're still keeping the end in mind, yes, it will take you longer. And when you first start anything that's difficult, it will take longer. It takes a while to really refine a skill set that's very hard to do. If shooting, for instance, flambient was easy, well, everybody would do it. But you're not everybody. So everybody else that's out there having a race to the bottom doing HDR and run and gun, that's just a dime a dozen. There's nothing sustaining that type of business. But if you stand out, you will have then word of mouth being spread because every one of the agents out there sees your work when a new listing comes up, no matter what that is. And that starts opening up more and more and more doors that you can then start building your portfolio, and it spirals upward to where you feel confident enough that, hey, maybe I can now start approaching some of these high-end clients, and that's the goal we want to achieve before taking the next steps. The one thing though that you don't want to do when you start feeling ready and you're going to start taking these next steps is don't start doing email blasts and Facebook ads and all these big expensive marketing campaigns. They're really not going to get you anything because, yeah, you'll attract some clients, but those are the people that are seeking out a photographer. But high-paying clients for these high-paying gigs, they're already established. They already probably have photographers that they're working with. Photographers seek them out. It's just the opposite. So what you need to do is you do need to concentrate on some research to be able to do that. I'm going to show you how to do that research here coming up in the next couple steps. And it's very simple to do. But don't start thinking that, hey, I've got this great, I'm going to make this great website and just people are going to flock to me because they can see that I've got great quality of work. No, you need to contact them. Now, you might get disheartened thinking that, well, if somebody's already got a photographer, why would they hire me? Well, a lot of reasons. One, we do have attrition that falls in any type of media. People retire, people move on. Or, and this is a very common one, is that clients aren't satisfied with their particular photography. It could be a personality conflict, it could be scheduling conflicts, they could be slipping on the quality of their work. This happens quite a bit, by the way, when photographers get large enough, they start outsourcing not just their editing, but hiring second shooters that don't meet the standards that they expected. So you'll see all kinds of things that will happen over time, and that's why for you, you have to stay the course on your quality to really sustain and keep these high-end clients. So one of the misconceptions of growing a real estate photography business is I grow and grow and I hire more people. Yes, you can do that. And if you're going to hire just more people that are going to be just part of the fray, then you're just going to be another real estate photography outfit out there. If you go after luxury clients, you can make enough money to just basically employ yourself and maybe another person who you trust to be able to do the same quality of work that you do, because you're going to take on fewer gigs. If you have to take on 5 gigs a day to be able to pay the bills, you're never going to be able to get into luxury real estate photography and sustain it. Yeah, you might get some high-end real estate photography gigs, but you're not going to be able to have a sustainable business. So to be sustainable, yes, you need that high quality. So anyways, don't worry about the email blasts for trying to achieve this higher goal. You need to start approaching these agents yourself. So the first thing you do want to do is you have to do research on your specific geography. Now, of course, I live near Los Angeles, and you might be living someplace in a very small town that doesn't have opportunities for real estate photography. But no matter where you live, I can guarantee there's a metropolitan area nearby that has expensive properties and expensive homes. Now you might think to yourself, well, I don't want to have to drive an hour, hour and a half every day to go shoot these luxury properties. Well, you won't have to. And that's the beauty of shooting higher paying gigs, these luxury properties, is that you usually only have to go into those metropolitan areas maybe 1 day a week, maybe 2 days a week, and you're not going to spend all day there. But the thing is, if you want to shoot those properties, you have to follow the money. You have to go where those properties are, and don't get discouraged by that. It's something that can, if you schedule it properly, you can miss traffic if you need to. You can also not spend all day there in these other areas, or you can take on, for instance, 2 gigs in a particular day for a metropolitan area for luxury properties, and then spend a few days on editing them at home. This is a different market, different turnaround than your standard MLS, where it's like, can you get out here today? Can you give me those photos tonight? It's different. When it comes to selling a very high-end property, the realtors that are the ones you want, the ones that know the long game, they know what it takes to sell a property for its highest value and get their best reputation for referrals. They know that planning is paramount. So they will plan ahead of time when to have this shot, when would be the best time to have that done, and then also when to expect to get quality results edited from that. For instance, in Southern California, we are constantly during the summertime hindered at the coast by what we call our June gloom and May gray, where we just have tons of overcast days, and it could happen very quickly. You could also be in Florida, and you know that even though the weather report will say it's sunny, it will rain every day no matter what, even if it's just for 10 minutes. So there are times when it comes to a high-end luxury property, they'll want to reschedule. They want to reschedule. So they'll be very flexible on that. And that's where then you can say, well, I have to drive an hour and a half into the metropolitan area. So you try to schedule 2 shoots for that particular day. And a lot of times the flexibility in scheduling will allow you to do that. But either way, you need to find the geographic area near you that will have these higher paying properties that will be represented by higher paying clients. Using Zillow, you can easily find the realtors that would be representing the high-end properties. Merely go into Zillow, look for a particular geographic area, and then you can look for houses for sale or maybe recently sold. And then the key is to put in a very high dollar range. Here, $2 million with no maximum shows these results. Here's one actually that I just recently shot. You go into that, and when you do, there's a couple things to look for. One, if you scroll down just a little bit, you will see that the listing is provided by someone. And whoever that someone is, that's the agent and there's their phone number. Now, the next step is to look up that particular agent and see what their history is. So you can look them up on Realtor, even on Zillow, and you can see how well they've performed. Then the next thing is to look at the pictures. Are these pictures actually something that you can do better? Can you improve on this? If not, then you need to start improving and upping your game to be able to produce something that's of a much higher quality. If you can't yet, then just work toward getting there. If though you can, if you see that the pictures are not up to the standards that you can achieve, you've got it made, because now it's easier to reach out and send an email to this particular client, tell them that you saw the listing on, for instance, Zillow, tell them that you're nearby in the area, and that you would be willing to then make them an offer. This is something, for instance, I call the local lure, similar to the local lure, I should say, in my business techniques book, where you do seek out one realtor, maybe 2 realtors, and you do it very slowly over time, being able to show that, look, I can do something better for you, and then work them just some type of deal. Don't give it away for free, give maybe a small discount on the first shoot, because if you're really good, you don't need to give discounts. Giving discounts just reeks of desperation. But anyways, once you do these searches, then you can start finding those particular agents and then reach out to them. above all else, you don't want to get caught in a race to the bottom. You don't want to start bidding in a price war. This isn't the type of client that you want to work with if you start getting caught up in that. It's a common problem with a lot of real estate photographers who just don't have the patience to really perfect their craft. For instance, using the flambient technique, using some of the higher end techniques that take a lot more work and do take a while to then be able to conquer and master. But if you don't compete with price, if you compete with quality, you're going to be in a different market. All too often, a lot of the HDR run and gun photographers, they're looking to just get in and out of a property in 30 minutes. Why? Because they don't make enough money on it. They're having a race to the bottom for pricing with their competition, and they're moving on to their next property, their next property, their next property before they get home. Then a whole day of shooting, making what they have, they still don't have enough time then to do the editing, so it gets outsourced. And these are just big mistakes, that I've talked about in the past. And I know some of you will say, well, outsourcing my editing was the best thing I ever did. Was it? Or was it that you just didn't pursue luxury real estate photography and go for the higher paying gigs? Find any of the high-end architectural photographers, and I guarantee you they may have an editing assistant, but it's rare to find that they actually will outsource their editing. Because when you work with luxury properties, luxury clients, and commercial clients as well, you need to work with them closely on site with what you're doing, and then also afterwards with the editing. And the expectations will be high, so they're looking for a craftsman, a tradesman, tradeswoman, tradesperson for doing a particular job. So it's the skill that they're looking for. When they're selling a home that's in the millions of dollars, the commission that they're making off of that will warrant very easily to pay for you $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is, to do the proper media for them. So don't get in that race to the bottom. Don't compete for price, compete on quality. And you just don't worry about competing against price in this race to the bottom. If you're caught up in those things, then you're just another photographer in the fray. There's a lot of real estate photographers out there, but you need to stand out. You need to keep trying. You need to keep improving. You need to wake up every day and say, what can I do better? Don't settle for the simple. Work toward the complex. Challenge yourself, and it will show. Work toward getting those high-end clients, and everything that you do will start having the results that are better than what you're doing now if all that you were to do was just slide back into the simple and say, I don't want to get into that luxury real estate photography market because it was unachievable, unattainable. It's not. You can achieve it. You can attain it. Keep trying. Keep working at it. Never give up, and the money will follow.